Welcome back. Last week we looked at serving and we looked at the technique of serving and we practiced some serves, but what we didn't do is really talk about serving in the court and how that all works. So before we get into that, we have to understand the parts of the court and which parts of those we use for. So I'm just going to show you some of the parts of the court. This part of the court here is called the tram lines. And we only use the tram lines if we're playing a doubles match being two people versus two people. If we're playing a singles match, we only use the interior part of the court. So this part here, meaning anything hit in the tram lines is out. This line here is called the service line, and these boxes here make up the service boxes. The lines at the back of the court here are called the baseline. When we play a doubles match, the first serve always comes from the right-hand side of the court. So this person here is going to be the server. They're going to stand over here on the side of the court rather than in the middle. That's where we would stand for singles. And this player is going to serve the ball from here diagonally across the net into the service box here. The server gets two chances at serving, so if the first one goes out or hits the net, that's called a fault, and they get a second chance to try and get their serve in the service box. If neither of those serves goes in the box, that's called a double fault, and that means it's a point to the opponent team. After the first point, the second point is going to be served from the opposite side. So for the second point, the server will move over to this point here, and the partner here is going to move over into this side of the court. And this time the server is going to serve from here over into this side of the court. So these players here, they stay in the same sides, they don't swap, it's only the server's side that swaps sides. The server's foot is not allowed to pass the baseline prior to them hitting the ball. So if they do step over the line before they've hit the ball, that's known as a foot fault. If they are in the air when they hit the ball and they cross the line, that's considered perfectly okay. It's only if their foot touches the ground over the line that it's a fault. Now that we know a little bit more about serving, let's look at some common errors when people are learning to serve. So when you're trying to serve the ball into the court, one of the things that happens with beginners is they try and hit the ball with way too much power and not enough accuracy. So if you can't get your serve in the court on your first two tries, you automatically give a point to your opponent. So you're wanting to minimize the double faults. So often to do that, you need to wind down the power and try and be more accurate and get the ball in the court to start the serve. One of the other areas is in the ball toss. If the ball toss is too far behind you, too far in front of you, or not high enough, that's going to bring around a high error rate on your serve. Some beginning servers don't get side on, they stand front on, and they do what we call a frying pan serve. When you're standing front on and doing that, what that means is that you're just using the muscles of your forearm to hit down on the ball, and you're not getting any shoulder rotation. That means that sometimes you can get the ball in the court, it's a good point starter, but it doesn't develop a good service technique over time. One of the other common errors is when people bend their knees to try and get additional power. It's a great idea to do that as your serving develops, but what we see often in beginners is that they bend their knees and then they straighten them again before they actually start the service action. Now the whole idea with bending your knees is to generate more force by being able to accelerate your body as well as the racket up towards the ball. If you straighten your legs prior to accelerating the racket head forward, you're breaking the kinetic chain and there's actually no benefit to you bending your knees in the first place. So if you are going to bend your knees, you need that to be a movement that accelerates you up towards the ball, creating more force for the serve. In our next lesson, we're going to be putting these service things into action in a game-like situation so you can find out about how consistent your serve can be. It's a really important part of the game to be able to serve the ball into the court, otherwise you can't get the point started. So if you've got any questions about serving or anything to do with serving the ball in the court with consistency and power, please bring those questions along to our next session. I'd never recommend a frying pan serve. I think we'll leave that one to the professionals.
professional athletes are than the rest of us. I mean, how big of a difference can it be, really? A guy named Chris Wurzel won an ESPN contest, and for winning, he got to play Andy Roddick in a game of tennis. Roddick had to use a frying pan. Roddick won 7-4 in a tiebreaker, proving that pros are a lot better than the rest of us.
It's not the racket, it's the